All right, get ready. Because we're about to jump headfirst into AI that can create images and videos just from a few words you type in.
Yeah,
I know, it sounds like something straight out of a movie.
totally.
But this is real.
It's happening right now.
It's happening right now with Amazon's new Nova models.
It's really mind-blowing stuff.
It is mind-blowing stuff. And of course, with any powerful technology, we have to talk about using it responsibly.
Absolute.
So today we're going behind the scenes. We're going to see how Amazon built safeguards into these models from day one.
Yeah, they didn't mess around.
And let me tell you, they didn't just slap a Be Good sticker on it and call it a day. They went deep.
They did. What's fascinating is that Amazon established a framework of 8 core dimensions of responsible AI.
Okay.
And these aren't just empty words. They actually guide everything about Nova, from its initial training to how it's used out in the real world.
8 dimensions, huh? Okay, I'm intrigued. Instead of just listing them all out, can you give us an example of one that was a particularly tough nut to crack for Amazon?
Absolutely. Take fairness, for example. It sounds simple enough, right?
Sure.
But ensuring an AI model doesn't exhibit bias is incredibly complex. Remember, these models learn from the data they are fed.
Right.
And unfortunately, that data often reflects existing biases in our world.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how did Amazon tackle this bias issue? I mean, how do you even begin to teach an AI about something as nuanced as fairness?
Well, they started by being really careful about the data they used to train Nova.
Okay.
They worked hard to make sure it was as diverse and representative as possible to minimize baked-in biases.
So it's not just about having a ton of data. It's about having the right kind of data. Like, are we talking about making sure there are images and videos from different cultures and backgrounds?
Exactly.
Okay.
They had to think about everything, from gender and race to different professions and even political ideologies. Then they went a step further and developed a benchmark called BOLDY, which is specifically designed to measure bias across all those categories.
Bold. What a great name.
Yeah,
So how does that actually work? It's like a bias detector for the AI.
it is. Imagine you ask Nova to complete the sentence. A software developer is.
Okay.
Now, biased AI might complete that with something stereotypical based on gender, for example.
Yeah?
Boldy allows them to test a whole bunch of prompts like this to see if Nova relies on biased assumptions. It's like giving it a pop quiz on fairness.
Okay, I'm starting to see how complex this whole thing is. It's not just about telling the AI, don't be biased. It's about creating all these systems to measure and correct those biases as they pop up.
You got it, and it doesn't stop there.
Okay.
On top of all this data and bias work, they use 2 specific training methods. Supervised fine-tuning, SFT,
Okay.
and reinforcement learning with human feedback, or RLHF.
Okay, I've heard of RLHF, but break it down for me. How did Amazon actually use that to make Nova more responsible?
With SFT, think of it as giving the AI a textbook and saying, study this.
Yeah.
They trained Nova on a huge data set of examples, showing it the desired behaviors. But RLHF is where things get really interesting. They actually brought in humans to provide feedback on Nova's outputs, like whether a generated image was fair or accurate or safe. This feedback was then used to train a separate reward model. And here's the key. The reward model reinforces those responsible behaviors in Nova.
So it's like giving the AI a gold star every time it does something right. And over time, it learns to chase those gold stars.
That's a great way to put it. And, many people don't realize how much human effort goes into training these models.
I can only imagine the hours and hours of feedback.
Yeah.
But it makes sense, especially when you're dealing with something as sensitive as responsible AI.
Absolutely. And speaking of being responsible, one of the things that really stood out to me was how Amazon approached the challenge of preventing harmful or inappropriate content.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear about that. I mean, we've all seen those stories about AI going off the rails. So how did Amazon prevent Nova from going down that path?
They created these things called guardrails,
Okay.
which are basically like safety checkpoints built right into the system. They have one for inputs
Okay.
and one for outputs.
Huh?
Think of input moderation as the bouncer at the club.
Okay.
If someone tries to feed Nova a prompt that's malicious, insecure, or just plain inappropriate, this guardrail model steps in and says, nope, not happening.
So it's like a filter that catches the bad stuff before it even reaches Nova.
Yeah.
That's reassuring. But what if the AI, despite all this training, still manages to produce something questionable?
That's where output moderation comes in. This guardrail model scrutinizes everything Nova creates. If it detects anything potentially sensitive or problematic, it flags it before it gets released. It's like having a super vigilant editor who catches all the errors before the article goes to print.
It's really impressive how they've layered these safeguards. It seems like they've thought of everything. Did they stop at bias and harmful content, or were there other dimensions of responsible AI they tackled?
Oh, they went much further. Another dimension that really caught my attention was veracity and robustness,
Okay.
which basically boils down to, can we trust Nova to produce accurate and reliable results, and can it stand up to attempts to manipulate it?
Now that you mention it, I've heard about AI models hallucinating,
Right.
like making up facts or going off on tangents. How did Amazon address that with Nova?
They developed a benchmark called Invite,
Okay.
which is designed to test the model's ability to identify and handle false information. For example, imagine someone gives Nova a prompt that includes a false assumption, like since the Earth is flat.
Right.
Invite helps ensure that Nova recognizes that the Earth is not, in fact, flat, and doesn't build its response based on that falsehood. It's like teaching the AI to be a fact checker.
So it's not just about generating creative content. It's about generating content that's grounded in reality. But what about the robustness part? How do they make sure someone can't trick Nova into doing something it's not supposed to do?
Well, remember all those guardrails we talked about?
Yeah.
Those play a big part in robustness. But they also did something really cool. They used a technique called red teaming.
Red teaming. Sounds intense.
It is. They had human experts essentially try to break the system.
Okay.
These red teamers came up with hundreds of different ways to try and trick Nova into producing harmful outputs or bypassing the safeguards. Think of it like an ethical hacker trying to find vulnerabilities in a computer system.
Wow, that's dedication. And what happened? Did they manage to break it?
They found some vulnerabilities, of course, which is the whole point of red teaming.
Right.
But the important thing is that they used that feedback to make Nova even more robust.
Okay.
Every time they found a weakness, they patched it up, making the system stronger.
It's like they're training Nova in a digital dojo, making it go up against increasingly tough opponents to test its limits.
Exactly. And get this, they didn't just stop at human red teaming. They also developed an automated red teaming system using AI.
Wait, AI trying to break other AI? Now that's just getting meta. How does that even work?
It's a brilliant way to scale up the red teaming efforts. They essentially use an AI model to automatically generate those attacks on Nova, pushing its limits far beyond what humans alone could do. It's like a constant evolving training simulation.
It's like they're saying, okay, Nova, you've mastered level 1 of responsible AI. Now get ready for level 2.
That's a great analogy. And just when I thought they couldn't get any more impressive, they threw in another layer of protection. Watermarking.
Watermarking, like they're stamping their logo on every image and video Nova creates.
Not quite. They embed invisible watermarks into the content. You can't see them with the naked eye, but they're there, and they can be detected using specialized tools.
That's really clever. What's the purpose of that?
Traceability. With all this amazing AI-generated content out there, it's becoming harder to distinguish what's real and what's not.
Right.
These watermarks help prove that the content originated from Nova.
So if someone claims a photo or video was made by a human, you can use this watermark to verify whether it was actually created by AI.
Exactly. And these watermarks are designed to be incredibly robust.
Okay.
They can withstand all sorts of attempts to remove them. It's like a digital fingerprint that's incredibly hard to erase.
Okay, that's seriously impressive. So they've got these guardrails, red teaming, and watermarking. What else did they do to ensure Nova lives up to those responsible AI standards?
Testing, and more testing. They have rigorous internal benchmarks that cover all 8 dimensions of responsible AI. Plus, they contributed to public data sets and benchmarks for things like fairness, privacy, security, and accuracy.
Why is contributing to public data sets so important?
By sharing their knowledge and tools, Amazon is helping to advance the entire field of responsible AI. It allows researchers and developers around the world to evaluate their own models against these shared benchmarks, leading to better, safer AI for everyone.
So they're not just keeping their methods secret, they're actually trying to raise the bar for the entire industry.
Exactly. And they didn't stop there. Remember the explainability dimension we touched on earlier?
Yeah.
That's all about understanding why an AI makes certain decisions.
Right.
With Nova, they've put a lot of effort into making the model's decision-making process more transparent.
Why is transparency so important in this context?
Well, imagine an AI model makes a decision that has a significant impact on someone's life.
Right.
Maybe it's a model used for loan applications or medical diagnoses.
Hmm.
If we don't understand why the model made a certain decision, it can be incredibly difficult to trust it or to challenge it if we think it's made a mistake.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like if a doctor tells you need surgery, you'd want to know why before you go under the knife.
Yeah.
You wouldn't just blindly trust their decision.
Precisely. And it's the same with AI.
Okay.
The more transparent the decision-making process is, the more trust we can have in the system.
So they've addressed bias, harmful content, accuracy, robustness, transparency. Is there anything else they focused on?
One more crucial dimension: privacy and security. They went to great lengths to protect user data and prevent any breaches or misuse.
Now we're getting into some really sensitive territory. What specific measures did they take?
Well, one area they focused on was preventing something called prompt injection,
Okay.
which is a type of attack where malicious actors try to trick the AI into revealing sensitive information or executing unauthorized commands.
So instead of hacking a computer system, they're hacking the AI itself. That's scary.
It can be. But Amazon was ready for it. They developed a benchmark called LLMP Evil to specifically test for vulnerabilities to prompt injection attacks. They essentially tried to hack their own system to find any weaknesses and then patch them up before releasing Nova to the world.
Wow, that's next level security. It sounds like they really went above and beyond to ensure that Nova is as secure as possible.
They did. And it's not just about protecting the AI itself. They also implemented strict data handling policies and procedures to safeguard any user data that interacts with Nova.
So for example, if I use Nova to create an image, I can be confident that my personal data isn't being collected or stored in a way that could be compromised.
That's right. They've taken steps to minimize data collection and implement strong security measures to protect any data collected. They want users to feel confident that their privacy is respected.
This is all incredibly impressive. They've thought of everything. But I'm wondering, with all these safeguards in place, does it ever feel like they've gone a bit too far? Like, could all these restrictions potentially limit the model's creativity or functionality?
That's a valid question.
Yeah.
It's a constant balancing act,
Great.
ensuring responsibility without stifling innovation.
Hmm.
And frankly, it's a debate happening across the entire field of AI.
Sure.
But I think what sets Amazon apart is their transparency. They've published detailed information about their approach,
Okay.
from their 8 dimensions of responsible AI to their testing methods. It's all out in the open.
So it's not just a PR stunt.
Yeah.
They're actually walking the walk.
Yeah.
But why is transparency so important in this case? I mean, besides building trust with users, does it actually make a difference?
Transparency is crucial for accountability. Researchers, policymakers, and even the public can scrutinize their methods and provide feedback, which ultimately helps ensure that the balance between innovation and responsibility is maintained.
It's like they're inviting the world to hold them accountable, which is pretty bold. But all of this has got me thinking, what happens when Nova gets into the hands of everyday users? I mean, we've seen all these amazing safeguards.
Right.
But how can we be sure these responsible AI principles will hold up in the real world, where people might not always have the best intentions?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And honestly, there are no easy answers.
Right.
But I think Amazon has set a really important precedent.
Okay.
They've shown it's possible to build powerful AI while prioritizing responsible development. By being so transparent, they're essentially challenging the entire industry to step up their game.
It's like they're saying, hey, if we can do it, so can you. And hopefully that leads to a ripple effect where responsible AI becomes the norm, not the exception.
Exactly. And it's not just about companies like Amazon.
Right.
We all have a role to play, from developers and policymakers to everyday users like you. We need to keep asking tough questions, demanding transparency, and holding each other accountable.
So it's not just about building responsible AI, it's about creating a whole ecosystem where those ethical considerations are baked in from the start.
I had to said it better myself.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've seen how Amazon is approaching responsible AI with Nova. From those 8 core dimensions to all the technical safeguards they've put in place, it's clear they're not just building AI tools, they're building them with a conscience.
They've definitely raised the bar, and it'll be exciting to see how the rest of the industry responds.
Now, before we go, I want to leave you with something to ponder. Imagine a world where every AI system is developed with the same level of care and attention to responsible AI principles that we've seen with Nova. What would that world look like? What incredible things could we achieve? And what new challenges might we face? Keep those questions in mind as you continue your own deep dive into the world of AI.
It's a fascinating and crucial conversation that we all need to be a part of.
This is The Deep Dive, signing off. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.